The soft click of a shutter echoed through the empty street as Alex Chen captured the first light of dawn creeping over the city skyline. He lowered his camera, an old Nikon that had seen better days, and sighed. The image would be good, he knew, but not great. Not the kind of photo that would finally land him that coveted spot in the city's premier gallery. As he packed up his gear, a flyer caught his eye. Arcane Acquisitions, Antiques and Curiosities. The shop's window displayed an eclectic array of old cameras, lenses, and photographic equipment. Alex pushed open the door, a tiny bell announcing his entrance. The interior was dim, dust motes dancing in the few shafts of sunlight that managed to penetrate the cluttered space. An elderly man appeared from behind a towering stack of books, his eyes magnified to owlish proportions behind thick glasses. "Ah, a photographer!" the old man exclaimed, his gaze fixed on the camera hanging around Alex's neck. "I have just the thing for you." Before Alex could protest, the shopkeeper disappeared into the back room, returning moments later with a camera unlike any Alex had ever seen. It was a large format view camera, its body crafted from dark polished wood and gleaming brass. The lens was a work of art in itself, multifaceted crystal that seemed to capture and refract light in impossible ways. "This," the old man said reverently, "is the Oculus Veritatis, the Eye of Truth. It's said to capture not just light, but the very essence of reality." Alex chuckled nervously. "Sounds a bit mystical for my taste. I prefer to deal in facts, in what I can see with my own eyes." The shopkeeper's smile was enigmatic. "Ah, but what if what you see isn't all there is? What if reality is more flexible than we believe?" Before Alex could ponder this cryptic statement, the old man pressed the camera into his hands. "A gift," he said, "for a true seeker of images. Use it wisely." Bewildered, Alex left the shop, the strange camera tucked under his arm. He spent the rest of the day shooting with his usual digital camera, pushing the encounter to the back of his mind. It wasn't until late that night, as he was developing the photos from the antique camera in his makeshift darkroom, that Alex's world turned upside down. The first image slowly emerged in the developer tray, the city skyline he'd captured at dawn. But as the details sharpened, Alex's breath caught in his throat. There, amidst the familiar buildings, stood an impossible structure. A tower of gleaming metal and glass that twisted in ways that defied physics, its top disappearing into the clouds. Alex blinked hard, sure he was seeing things. But the image remained, the phantom tower as clear and detailed as the buildings he knew existed. With trembling hands, he developed the next photo. It was a shot of a busy intersection, pedestrians crossing the street. But in the photograph, one man walked several inches above the ground, his feet never touching the pavement. Another seemed to phase in and out of existence, his body transparent in places. Photo after photo revealed similar impossibilities. A flock of birds with geometrically perfect formations. A tree whose leaves spelled out words when viewed from the right angle. A child with a shadow that moved independently of its owner. Alex slumped against the wall, his mind reeling. This couldn't be real. And yet, the evidence was right before his eyes, captured in silver and light. Over the next few days, Alex found himself drawn back to the Oculus Veritatis again and again. He roamed the city, capturing images of the world as no one else could see it. With each click of the shutter, he felt like he was peeling back layers of reality, revealing truths hidden just beneath the surface. But it wasn't until a week after acquiring the camera that Alex discovered its true power. He was reviewing his latest batch of photos when he noticed something odd about a shot he'd taken of his apartment building. In the photo, the peeling paint and cracked concrete were gone, replaced by fresh colours and immaculate maintenance. Alex frowned, sure he hadn't captured the building looking so pristine. As he stared at the image, something strange happened. The world around him seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. When it settled, Alex gasped. His apartment building now matched the photo exactly, freshly painted, repairs complete as if years of neglect had been erased in an instant. Heart-pounding, Alex grabbed the camera and raced outside. He snapped a picture of a pothole-ridden street, then used a bit of darkroom trickery to edit out the potholes in the developed image. Within moments, the actual street smoothed over, the potholes vanishing as if they'd never existed. Alex's mind whirled with the implications. This camera didn't just capture reality, it could change it. As the days passed, Alex found himself consumed by the possibilities. He photographed withered plants, editing the images to show them in full bloom. He captured images of sick stray animals, altering the photos to show them healthy and well-fed. With each change, reality shifted to match, and Alex felt a growing sense of power and responsibility. But with that power came questions that gnawed at him. How far should he go? What gave him the right to reshape the world according to his vision? And what unforeseen consequences might his actions have? Alex stood at his apartment window, the Oculus Veritatis heavy in his hands. The city spread out before him, a canvas waiting to be reshaped. But as he raised the camera to his eye, a chill ran down his spine. For in that moment, as he peered through the lens, Alex could have sworn he saw the fabric of reality itself, a shimmering, gossamer-thin membrane that separated what was from what could be. And in the distance, where his alterations had been most dramatic, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A tear had formed in that fabric, a tiny rift in the very essence of existence. And through that tear, something impossible was beginning to seep through. Alex lowered the camera, his hand shaking. He realized then that his journey with the Oculus Veritatis was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Alex's fingers trembled as he adjusted the focus on the oculus veritatis. Through the viewfinder, he could see the small tear in reality he'd noticed earlier. It pulsed gently, like a living thing, wisps of otherworldly energy seeping through. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the shutter release. Part of him screamed to put the camera away, to pretend he'd never discovered its power. But a larger part, the part that had always pushed him to capture the perfect image, urged him on. Click. The tear vanished from view, sealed as if it had never existed. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realised he'd been holding. Crisis averted, at least for now. Over the next few weeks, Alex found himself walking a precarious line. He used the camera sparingly, making small changes that he justified as improvements. A dilapidated playground restored to its former glory. A drought-stricken park transformed into a lush oasis. Each alteration brought a rush of satisfaction, a feeling of making the world just a little bit better. But with each change, the temptation grew stronger. Why stop at small improvements? Why not think bigger? One evening, as Alex reviewed his latest batch of photos, his eyes fell on an image of a homeless man he'd photographed in the park. The man's weathered face told a story of hardship and struggle. Almost without thinking, Alex began to edit the photo, erasing the lines of care, replacing tattered clothes with clean ones, adding a spark of hope to the man's eyes. He made the final adjustment. The familiar ripple of reality changing washed over him. Alex rushed to the window, scanning the street below. There on a bench sat the man from the photograph. But now he was clean-shaven, dressed in fresh clothes, his posture straight and confident as he read a newspaper. Wave of euphoria washed over Alex. He'd changed a life, given someone a second chance. This was what the camera was for, he realised. Not just to observe reality, but to perfect it. From that moment, Alex's use of the oculus veritatis became more frequent, more daring. He photographed rundown neighbourhoods and transformed them into thriving communities. He captured images of polluted rivers and edited them clean, watching in amazement as the actual waterways cleared before his eyes. But as Alex's alterations to reality grew bolder, so did the consequences. He was in his dark room, developing his latest batch of citywide improvements, when he noticed something odd. In the background of one photo, barely visible, was a figure that shouldn't have been there. It was blurred and indistinct, but its shape was all wrong. Too tall, too many limbs, moving in ways that defied human anatomy. Alex's blood ran cold. He quickly flipped through the other photos, finding similar anomalies in each one. Strange shadows where there should be none, impossible geometries hiding in plain sight, and always those unsettling figures lurking at the edges. Panic rising in his throat, Alex rushed out onto the street. At first glance, everything seemed normal. The improvements he'd made were all there. Cleaner streets, happier people, a general sense of prosperity. But as he looked closer, he began to notice discrepancies. Colours seemed slightly off, as if the whole world had been shifted a few degrees on some invisible spectrum. Shadows fell at impossible angles, and when he wasn't looking directly at them, buildings seemed to shift and waver in his peripheral vision. And the people, something was wrong with the people. Their movements were just a little too smooth, their smiles a little too wide. When they spoke, there was an echo to their voices, as if the words were coming from somewhere else entirely. Alex stumbled back to his apartment, his mind reeling. What had he done? In his quest to perfect reality, had he somehow broken it? As he burst through his door, Alex froze. His apartment was wrong. The layout was the same, but everything was slightly out of place. Books he'd never owned lined the shelves, and on the walls hung photographs of places he'd never been, people he'd never met. And there, on his desk, sat the Oculus Veritatis. But it too had changed. The wood was darker, the brass tarnished. The lens, once crystal clear, now swirled with an oily, iridescent sheen. With shaking hands, Alex picked up the camera. As soon as his fingers touched the cool metal, a jolt of energy surged through him. Suddenly, he could see the world as it truly was. Reality itself seemed to be unraveling. The walls of his apartment rippled like water, and through the cracks, he caught glimpses of other places, other times. The air was thick with shimmering particles that seemed to dance with purpose, reorganizing the world around them. And the tear he thought he'd fought, it was back. But now it wasn't just one. Dozens of rifts hung in the air, doorways to places that should not be. Through them, Alex could see impossible landscapes and hear the whispers of beings that had no place in this reality. He realized then the true nature of his mistake. The Oculus Veritatis didn't just capture reality, it was a key to it. And in his arrogance, he had been rewriting the rules of existence without understanding the consequences. As Alex stood there, the camera heavy in his hands, he knew he faced an impossible choice. Continue down this path, reshaping reality to his will, but risking the very fabric of existence. Or find a way to undo what he'd done, to seal the rifts and restore the world to its imperfect but stable state. The fate of reality itself hung in the balance. And Alex, a simple photographer who'd only ever wanted to capture the truth, now held the power to define what truth itself meant. With a deep breath, he raised the camera to his eye. Whatever he decided, he knew one thing for certain. The next photo he took would change everything. The world twisted and warped around Alex as he made his way through the city, the Oculus Veritatis clutched tightly in his hands. Every step felt like walking through a Salvador Dali painting come to life. Buildings bent at impossible angles, their windows reflecting realities that shouldn't exist. The sky above was a kaleidoscope of colours, day and night occurring simultaneously in fractured sections. People, if they could still be called that, moved in stuttering, glitch-like motions. Some phased in and out of existence, while others seemed to be trapped in loops, repeating the same actions over and over again. The air, it says, was thick with possibilities, shimmering with potential realities that threatened to overwrite the current one at any moment. Alex knew he had to find the source of the camera's power, to understand what he was dealing with before reality collapsed entirely. His feet carried him, almost instinctively, back to where it all began, the antique shop where he'd received the Oculus Veritatis. As he approached, he saw that the shop had changed. It now occupied an impossible space, existing in multiple locations at once, its interior visible from the outside as if the walls were mere suggestions. The bell above the door chimed in a melody that seemed to bend time itself. "I've been expecting you, Alex," the old shopkeeper's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. As Alex's eyes adjusted to the mind-bending interior, he saw the man standing before him, or rather multiple versions of him, each slightly out of phase with the others. "What's happening, boy?" Alex demanded, his voice cracking with the strain of recent events. "What is this camera? What have I done?" The old man's chuckle reverberated through the fractured space. The Oculus Veritatis is a lens between realities, a tool for shaping the very fabric of existence. And you, my dear boy, have been quite the ambitious artist. As the shopkeeper spoke, the space around them shifted, revealing glimpses of other worlds, other possibilities. Alex saw versions of himself, some where he'd never picked up the camera, others where he'd used its power for far darker purposes. "But why give it to me?" Alex asked, struggling to focus on the myriad versions of the old man before him. "Because it was time," all versions of the shopkeeper said in unison. "The Oculus chooses its wielder, and it chose you. But with great power comes great responsibility," Alex finished, the weight of his actions crashing down upon him. "I've messed everything up, haven't I? I've broken reality." The old man's expression softened. "Reality is more resilient than you might think. But it is also more fragile. What you've done cannot be simply undone. The question now is, what will you do to fix it?" Alex looked down at the camera in his hands, feeling the pulse of power within it. I don't know. Can I even fix this? "That," the shopkeeper said, his many forms coalescing into one, "is up to you." The Oculus Veritatis shows the truth, but it also reveals the power of perspective. Reality is shaped by how we perceive it, by the stories we tell ourselves and each other. As the old man spoke, the shop around them began to stabilize, the fractured realities merging into a singular, coherent space. Alex felt a clarity he hadn't experienced since he first used the camera. "You have seen the world through the lens of absolute truth," the shopkeeper continued. "You've seen the infinite possibilities, the malleable nature of reality. Now you must decide, what truth will you choose to capture?" Alex raised the camera, looking through the viewfinder. He saw the world as it was, broken and chaotic, but also full of potential. He saw the consequences of his actions, the rifts he'd torn in the fabric of reality. But he also saw the beauty in imperfection, the value of struggle and growth. With a deep breath, Alex began to take photos. But this time, instead of trying to perfect reality, he captured its essence. He photographed the resilience of people facing adversity, the hope in a child's smile, the quiet dignity of age. He captured moments of kindness, of love, of human connection. As he worked, Alex felt the world shifting around him, but not in the violent, chaotic way it had before. This time the changes were subtle, a gentle realignment of possibilities. The rifts in reality began to close, not erased, but healed, scars that would serve as reminders of the delicate balance of existence. The impossible geometries of the city softened, returning to the familiar forms but now imbued with a hint of wonder, as if the memory of what they could be lingered just beneath the surface. People on the street no longer glitched or phased, but there was a new awareness in their eyes, a sense that they had glimpsed something beyond the veil of ordinary perception. As Alex took the final photo, he felt a profound shift within himself. He understood now that the true power of the Oculus Veritatis wasn't in changing reality, but in changing how reality was perceived. He lowered the camera, turning to the shopkeeper who watched him with a proud smile. "I think I understand now," Alex said softly. The old man nodded. "And what will you do with this understanding?" Alex looked down at the Oculus Veritatis, feeling its weight, not just physical but metaphysical. "I'll use it to show the world the truth. Not a perfect truth, but a human one. To capture the beauty in our flaws, the strength in our struggles, the infinite potential in every moment." "A worthy goal," the shopkeeper said, his form beginning to fade. "Use it wisely, Alex Chen. For you are no longer just a photographer, but a guardian of reality itself." As the old man disappeared, Alex found himself back on the street. The world had returned to normal, or what passed for normal now. There was a new vibrancy to everything, as if the veil between what was and what could be had been permanently thinned. Bedtime the Oculus Veritatis to his eye one more time, seeing the world not as it should be, but as it truly was, beautiful, flawed, and infinitely mysterious. With a smile, he pressed the shutter, capturing a moment of pure, unfiltered reality. The soft click echoed through the street, not just the sound of a photograph being taken, but of a new chapter beginning. For Alex Chen, for the world, and for the very nature of reality itself. As he lowered the camera, Alex knew that his journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. With the Oculus Veritatis as his guide, he would explore the depths of reality, showing the world truths it had always known but never seen. And somewhere in the spaces between moments, in the reflections of windows and the shadows of dreams, the old shopkeeper smiled, knowing that the Oculus Veritatis had found its perfect match. The world wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for Alex Chen, that was the most beautiful truth of all.